Welcome aboard, guys. Again, we're this is the Norada Capital Management webinar. So if you got this link and you were thinking it was something else, might not be the best space for you. But if you are here to learn about promissory note investing and about our fund and the businesses in our fund and what a promissory note is, and you're thinking of potentially investing, we do these live almost every week, just about every week, Wednesdays at 11 Pacific, um, to talk about Norada Capital Management and the offering that we have on the table. So my name is Nathan Hall. To my left, probably Marco's right. Um, that's Marco, and Marco Centarelli. He's the owner of Norada Capital Management and also Norada Real Estate Investments. So there's a few different companies underneath Norada we can talk about here in a second. But quick background on myself. I've been in the investment world for a decade, whether it's investment real estate, private money lending, hard money lending. I've been with Marco 3 or 4 years now and watched him scale and grow not only the real estate side of the business, but also the note side of the business and the businesses that he's growing and expanding. And he's very passionate about that he himself is actually equity owner and partner in, right? So we will dive into the process and how those companies work. But again, this is a space I'm very familiar with in terms of growing, scaling, raising private money, whether it's for businesses or investment real estate, whatever it might look like. So a little bit about myself, and then Marco, if you'd like to take, usually, you can do it in 30 seconds, but you could spend an hour on it. But Marco, feel free to introduce yourself here to our new our investors here on this call.
Sure. Yeah, I've always considered myself a serial entrepreneur since I was a teenager. Started investing in real estate when I turned 18 years old, and I've been in and out of small business ventures for a long time, but ultimately started to grow and scale some, bigger, more viable businesses and continue to invest in real estate. 20 years ago, I started Norada Real Estate Investments. We were one of the first nationwide turnkey providers of turnkey investment property. And to this day, we still are, one of the premier leaders in that space, even though I marketed the crap out of it 20 years ago and put that whole word of turnkey on the map. Now everybody uses it. Our definition is pretty stringent compared to what a lot of people use to call a investment property turnkey, because it really isn't turnkey by our definition. But one of the other companies that I started 4 years ago is Norada Capital. It's a private equity firm essentially, but from the outside looking in, it's an investment. It's a fund. It's an investment fund, and so that's an opportunity for you as an investor. But for us, it allows us to grow and scale businesses that I'm a partner in and a co-founder in, which is pretty exciting. We'll talk a little bit about that today. But yeah, I've always been involved in real estate and businesses and investing, and I love to talk about it, love to teach it, and have fun doing it. So
Yeah, love it. And I think one of the key words there is, a lot of our participants on a weekly basis are real estate investors. And what you'll learn here in a second, guys, is the fund itself and the capital raise itself is backed by companies and businesses. So which we'll dive into and we'll learn about here in a second. Real quick, a couple side notes here for those of you who just jumped on a little bit late. There is a Q&A box. So if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand. You can put your your questions into the Q&A box. I've also thrown some links into the standard chat box. So you can look, in the webinar chat to everyone, where I've put in access to our website, where if you haven't chatted with an investment counselor like myself yet, or Michael or John, you can sign up through our website. There's a chat widget. There's also, a form you can fill out that just says, hey, you're raising your hand, you'd like to be contacted. There's an investor slide deck link in that webinar chat as well. So if you want to follow along as Marco goes through the companies, you can see those companies, you can see the offering itself. We'll talk about that in a second. And I've also put some websites there that are, part of our fund, right? I put a link in there to one of our e-commerce businesses, the main backbone of the educational mastermind companies for the Aspire Tour. And I also put in a Broadway musical, which is a good backbone of Marco's Broadway musical productions company. So that's all going to be there for you. Leslie, to answer your quick question, and thank you for bringing that up. Yes, this is recorded. So we will be recording this video, and we'll be sending you out that recorded link probably the next 48, 72 hours or so. So just keep an eye on your inbox, and always keep an eye on your spam folder as well. You get a lot of emails, as do we. Sometimes, you get things filtered to spam that aren't necessarily spam. So we send out a recorded link every single time. So just a couple ground rules there, and a couple things to remind you guys as participants on this webinar. So Marco, did I miss anything? Anything to add there?
Nope, great start.
Cool. So like every week, typically we dive into the basics of a promissory note, and then we move into what backs that promissory note. So 30 seconds elevator pitch on what a promissory note is, Marco. You've got this down to a science. And then we'll talk about the actual company itself with Norada Capital Management, the holdings, which I think is the most exciting part, is what's actually, inside Norada Capital, because it's the growth in the last 5 years plus the potential growth over the next 5-10 years is massive. So we'll start with the promissory note if we could, and then we'll go into the companies.
Yeah, for sure. So as quickly as I can, a promissory note is just a fancy name for a loan agreement. That's all it is. It's a loan agreement. It's a document that has two parties, a borrower and a lender, and it's used every day, all the time, everywhere around the country and even around the world. So if you've ever had a student loan, a signature loan, a car loan, even a mortgage loan, arguably, is a note. It's a promissory note. So it's just a loan agreement, two parties, and it defines the terms, start date, end date, what's the interest or what is being earned, how that is being repaid. Is it monthly, quarterly, annually, or just one balloon payment at the end? And that's all it is. It's just an agreement that outlines the terms between two parties on a loan. And I'll just add one more quick comment to that. It's a common instrument that companies use to raise capital. So when companies raise capital, they either sell equity or shares, or they raise funds through issuing debt. And the promissory note is the tool that's being used for that. And that's exactly what we use as a company, as do thousands and thousands of other companies all the time.
Yeah, love it. So give you a brief example, guys. Let's say I'm an investor. I come to Marco and say, hey, I'm accredited, right? Which is one of the criterias. And I want to say, I want to do a 3-year note for $50,000, which is our minimum, right? That note is a agreement between me, the lender, and Marco, the borrower. And Marco and Norada Capital Management would then pay me an interest rate to borrow that capital for that term, for that 3 years. So it's literally that simple. There's nothing complicated. There's nothing, over the top about it. It's a loan agreement between two parties. I like to refer to it as private money lending because I have a real estate background, right? So it's essentially a private money loan between two parties. So that's how simple the actual note itself is. Now, what backs that note is what's key, right? There are a lot of offerings out there. We happen to have a pretty solid backing of companies that back your investment. So, Marco, you do a great job at breaking down those 3 categories, right? There's usually e-commerce, there's our mastermind, and then there's Broadway, right? So what order, or however you want to talk about the companies and the backing, feel free to start wherever you'd like.
Yeah, so within Norada Capital, essentially there's 3 categories of companies or assets, as Nate mentioned. The first one is where we got started about 4 years ago, and those are the e-commerce businesses. Without going too deep into it, because obviously I could, drill down into that and talk about it for an hour. But we as in a partnership that I was in, started going down this road of building e-commerce businesses. But ultimately what we did is we ended up acquiring Dress Barn, the intellectual property for Dress Barn, which we own and control today, debt-free. And that playbook worked out so well that we did it again with Pier 1 Imports. And so today we own Pier 1 and all the trademarks that it owns, which is probably a couple hundred, and everything that's going on with that. So that's pretty exciting because, that was $1 billion business 2 times in a row. And our goal, as in my partnership in that, is to turn it back into a $1 billion company within 5 years. We'll probably do it in less. So we started making these acquisitions in the e-commerce space, which included Dress Barn, Pier 1 Imports, Steinmart, Linens and Things, and Franklin Mint, a few smaller boutique type of retailers. We also have one in that category that's bodybuilding.com. It's a big national brand. That is not specifically a retail-based business, but there's opportunity to monetize and increase what is being sold on that website. It actually gets 4.3 million visitors a month. So it's incredibly well trafficked, if that's the right word. But previous owners, one being a billionaire who sold it to us, just did not know how to market it and didn't want to spend the time and energy in building that business. So anyway, that's the first category, was what we call e-commerce.
And
Uh,
can I pause there for a second, Marco?
yeah, you can
Really
interrupt me
chime
anytime.
in. And guys, if
100%.
you want to visit one of those websites, I put it in the webinar chat. So go to after the call, go to pier1.com, go to bodybuilding.com, go visit some of our e-commerce trafficked websites. And you'll see there, you can buy product on them right now if you want to, right? Honestly, there's actually pretty good deals, and there's usually some good discounts on some of those sites as well. So again, check out that link. I put pier1.com in there just as an example, but you can find any one of those companies. They're also in the investor slide deck I put in this chat as well. So sorry to cut you off there, Marco. You were going to move into I think the next category there. So
Yeah, no, you can interrupt me anytime you like, because I always forget things that you can add
fair
color
enough.
to and whatnot. So it's good. So that's the first category, is what we call our e-com businesses. The second category is probably one of the largest and potentially the most lucrative area that we are focused on. I refer to them as educational masterminds. There's two specifically. One we call the Money is Mastermind, and there's another one we call Level Up. It's a real estate mastermind, so the Level Up Real Estate Mastermind. These are, for those of you who are not familiar with masterminds, it's just a group of people, could be very large or very small, of like-minded people that come together for a common purpose, to learn, and get educated, getting content about a subject, as well as building a community where they get to know each other, bond, help each other, and potentially even do deals together. That very, very loosely is the definition of a mastermind or a mastermind group. And so we've taken that to a whole other level, where we have this very large community that's growing with both Money Is and Level Up, where there's an annual membership fee to be part of that, but they get tons and tons of value and content every week, every month. There are large live events that we put on every single quarter, East Coast, West Coast. It's just a great place to be, and there's a lot of education value and content and networking that happens. So those businesses are very lucrative. They are growing to be cash cow businesses, and that is what we're focused on building. Now, as part of those two masterminds, there is kind of what I call a marketing funnel, but a parent umbrella business that drives a lot of the traffic in, which we can talk about a little bit more, Nate, called Aspire. It's called the Aspire Tour. It has been dubbed by Forbes as the largest business tour in America,
Yep.
which is actually true, because we're getting anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 people attending each month at each event, and we're growing that. As a side note, we just about a month and a half ago, we locked up Madison Square Garden for our event in July. So July 20th, we're probably targeting about 8,000 people at Madison Square Garden for our next Aspire Tour event. By the way, as a side note, anybody who wants to attend you can go to the link that Nate put in the chat. It's aspiretour.com. You don't have to have the /home on there, but both work. And you can see the cities that are coming up. We usually put the next 4 at any given time, so it's constantly being updated. But it's in different cities around the country, and if you can attend, it's great. It's an amazing event. But long story short, we use the Aspire events to drive people into our ecosystem so they can attend our master classes and then ultimately join our mastermind. So that's that second category, is what I refer to as educational masterminds. Nate, did you?
Yeah. And what I will tell you from that, I've been around the live event, the mastermind, the education space for a long time, a lot of years. I can tell you, I wouldn't be where I'm at in terms of career, financially, without being in the ecosystem like that. So I found that a lot of times with different live event spaces, whether it's education or finance, you're learning a lot of things that you're not going to learn traditionally, right? You're not going to learn them from a standard school or a standard college or something like that. It's just a like-minded growth mindset, very business focused and business oriented entrepreneurs. It's typically what you find in groups like that. And some people who have never started a business that are aspire to it, but no pun intended for the,
It happens a lot,
shameless plug
actually.
there. But the space is a very powerful you know, educational driven space, which is fantastic for a lot of people who want that kind of thing. And there is a market for that. A lot of people are craving growth. They're craving new techniques for investing. They're craving a community around real estate, right? And it's very lucrative as well. I mean, Marco talked about the membership process, right? And that's what helps grow and expands Marco's position in Norada Capital Management as well. So yeah, the spaces around the live event and the education space for me have been transformative for my life. So I'm all in on those. A lot of people have never heard of them or experienced them, but it's a niche market, but it's a definitely a powerful market. So I just want to add my 2 cents in there before I move on to that third category, which is probably my favorite, one of my favorite categories in the arts
Right.
space. So yeah,
One more comment regarding the event space and the educational masterminds. Again, that's a whole thing we could talk about for hours, but the the audience size is massive. It's
right,
enormous. Not everybody, but a lot of people want to learn more about finance and investing, and they want that financial education. They want to increase their financial IQ. And as Nate, you were saying, like, you don't learn this in school, and most of your friends, even your financial advisors, really don't have a good or firm understanding of how to make money, how to grow it, how to protect it, how to defer or eliminate your tax impact on it. And that's something that my partner Andrew talks about all the time, is about money movement, and how to protect and defer your taxes virtually indefinitely. Protect your money from taxes virtually indefinitely. So these are some of the things we talk about with our Money Is mastermind. It's just part of the education that we give,
right.
but it's a very, very lucrative space. And we are beyond creating a business. We are beyond creating a brand with it. It's what I call a movement. We've actually created a movement. And if you follow us on social media, especially on Instagram at Aspire Tour, you'll see what I mean. But just go to the website and you can look us up on on Instagram on Aspire, Aspire Tour. It's pretty exciting, but attend if you can. Side note here, Nate, someone in the chat said that they
I
don't see
saw
the chat.
that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, we're looking into it. I assume maybe someone can comment, but I assume everybody else can see it. And if they can't, I'm not sure why, because you did send these links to everybody in the chat.
Yeah.
I
I'll
can
try
see
to
that.
send in the links one more time, guys. If someone in
Okay.
the chat could let me know if they see or don't see the link I'm going to resend right now. I mean, it says it's sent to everyone.
Yeah, I see that
So
too. Okay.
try it again there.
So that's, I can go on and on, but that's the second category that makes up the assets in Norada Capital. The third category, as Nate was talking about, that he loves near and dear to his heart, are theatrical productions. Most of what we invest in the theatrical space um, uh, is Broadway based. There's only a couple, I believe, right now that are in London on the West End. Uh, The Devil Wears Prada is one of those. But we've got some amazing Broadway productions that are either running right now or to be running here over the next 12 months or so. So that's an exciting area. It's fun. It's a much smaller portion of our fund. The assets we have under management, or what we'll just say assets on the balance sheet, they are business ventures. They're not just investments, they're business ventures. But they do carry higher risk. But it's kind of like a side note here, but kind of like what venture capital firms do, where they invest in multiple businesses, knowing that a lot of them are going to struggle or maybe not recoup their investment or their money on. There's always going to be 1 or 2 out of 10 that do extremely well. One might actually knock it out of the park. And you've heard of some of these productions, like whether it be Hamilton or Wicked or
Yeah.
Lion King or whatever, that run for years and years and years and just are money printing machines. I actually know of a person who's a friend of mine, one of my friend co-producers. They got involved in a production, and they made a reasonable size investment in it, but it was recouped so long ago, and right now he's making $100,000 a month from the residuals, the royalties from that production. So he's making $1.2 million a year from that one investment.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So So they can be pretty lucrative.
Yeah, and just a couple of things on that. First, thank you, Matt, for letting us know that you received the link. I think the reason people didn't receive it before is because I typed them in prior to the start of the webinar. But I will re-enter the links that were originally in there, so you guys can all see that. Thanks for the update, Matt. And just to go back to the Broadway space and the musical space, both my parents are retired professional musicians. My dad is music professor for 41 years. He was the chair oboist in the longest running symphony in the country. My mother was a professional organist and piano player. I grew up in the arts, and I grew up around just musicians my whole life. So I know Marco is a passionate music and theater person. This is not just something that was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Marco, this is not just something that you invested in to invest in. You're very passionate about the arts, which is unique. So it's a passion project that you happen to get to make residuals on, and you get to make income on, which is great. But yeah, I think that the arts is very special. It's very near and dear to me. That was a very unique part of Norada Capital when I was first asked to come on board here and support. So I like that from the beginning. Just something to add in there, and I appreciate that part of the fun, Marco, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's fun and it's exciting. Oh, by the way, as a kind of a side note, I don't know if I told you this, Nate. I was talking to somebody, but yesterday was the day. This is all side note stuff.
Yeah.
Yesterday was actually the day that they officially announced the nominees for the Tony Awards.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, so that list is out. You can look it up. You can Google it. It's the 77th annual Tony Awards, which I just submitted an application. You have to do it through an application process to get tickets for the event and the gala. But four of our productions are nominated for an award.
Nice.
So The Notebook, Cabaret, Here Lies Love, and Gutenberg. So those four are up for have been nominated, so they stand to win a Tony Award.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Tony Awards is like the Oscars for Broadway.
Yeah,
Uh, and Marco is a Tony Award voter, correct? You get to
yeah,
vote every year. Nice.
yeah. Of course, I'm voting for our own productions.
I would hope. I'm gonna reattach those links in here, guys, so you can walk through some of those things as we continue along here. But yeah, Marco, if you we have some good questions so far. So if you want to maybe hit on some of those
Yeah.
questions while I put the link, while I put these links in here.
Yeah, I'll start with Bill's, but before I do that, there's one or two there from anonymous attendee.
Yeah.
Nate and I appreciate if you could put a name, even if it's just a first name. Nobody else can see it, but just so we know who we're dealing with or addressing, it's just helpful for us to know who's on here. Actually, we should almost make it kind of a mandatory thing to register with an actual name. So just let me grab a couple questions here. Bill, you've likely answered several times before, but when will you have a website illustrating account activity? Good question. Even though I've looked into some website solutions for that, there's really no need for it because the investors invest in a note that has a fixed principal amount. It doesn't change. It's not like it's an amortized note or it's an equity investment where the value of that investment fluctuates or changes, every month or every quarter, or there's something being amortized. So everything is fixed and static. Nothing changes. So if there was a portal, it wouldn't make a difference whether you had you looked at it today or you looked at it in 6 months or in 12 months from now, it's going to be exactly the same. The only thing that's changing on our end is the number of distributions that have gone out to you in terms of interest payments. So you already have that information because you see that in your bank account or your bank statement, wherever the funds are going, you already have a record of that. So there's really nothing to essentially quote unquote report from our end. It's if you have a 4-year note, your principal's repaid in 4 years, and every month during those 48 months, you're just getting an interest distribution or payment into your self-directed retirement account or wherever it's going. So yeah, I mean, there's really no need for a portal. It's just an extra expense that I'm too frugal to pay for, and so
And we're not a brokerage firm, right? So we're not like, you're not compounding your interest, you're not
Right.
reinvesting. So it's not like you need to track. It's literally, here's your P&L at the end of the month, pull your bank statement, there's your line item for your interest payment. You brought up a great point, by the way. You mentioned self-directed IRAs. There's a myriad of ways you can invest in promissory notes, by the way. So you can use your personal funds, you can use your business, you can use your self-directed IRA, your solo 401k, your trust, right? We can title the note however you want us to. The criteria for investing in our fund, it's a 506c Reg D offering. So you have to be an accredited investor for the SEC, right? Which means, a net worth of $1 million or an income of $200,000 for the previous 2 years, or $300,000 combined with your spouse. So, you pick your term, you pick your minimum investment's 50K, your minimum term is 3 years, but you can use all those investment vehicles. And all that's reiterated, by the way, on the investor slide deck, which I posted in the chat. So everyone should be able to see that now. Eric, by
Bill,
the way, asked you, go ahead,
Bill has
Marco.
a follow.
Eric asked a great question there.
Yeah, Bill kind of had a follow up, so it just ties right into what we were talking about. So I might as well just take that, and then we can go to Eric.
Yep, go ahead.
So Bill saying, that's a fair response, but I'm a new investor and I don't see, and I'm using the air quotes for see
Right.
anywhere where I have money invested with you. Bill, a good question. So,
Yep.
So just to kind of piggyback on what I was saying before, you will have an investment package, which basically is made up of the investor deck, more importantly, the promissory note that is signed by both parties, you and us, as well as all the disclosures that are attached to that. So that is your financial instrument. That is the document that basically is the contract or the agreement between us and you. Then what happens immediately is you'll get a prorated interest payment for the remainder of that month from when your funds are wired, actually.
Yep.
That's the proration for the interest for that month. And then you're set up on an automated direct payment system where you're going to get an interest payment each and every month for the term of your note. And so you'll see that come in every month. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you probably get an email as well, I'm not sure if it comes from our banking institution, but you would definitely have some sort of record on your end, coming from your banking institution or your self-directed retirement account custodian, whoever that may be. But you will have statements and paperwork and records of it on your end. It doesn't have to be in a third-party portal over there. It's basically the documentation that we have with you as an agreement that's signed by both of us, as well as the statements you're getting. So
Yep.
I guess that's where you, again, quote unquote, see it is just in the bank statements that you're getting every month. Like a portal is not going to give you any more information that you don't already have between your statements and the agreement.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, when you use the like where your money is invested, you'll know where it's invested. We send you the investor slide deck. The disclosures, the note states everything for you. You provide us with the accounts that you would like us to send your distributions to, your monthly distributions. So it's all very transparent, and you'll have access to what our accounts are, right? Our wire numbers, our EINs, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
it's all given to you. Eric, I think you're going to go to Eric's question there. Go ahead. It's a good question, Eric, by the way.
Yeah. And let me know the questions you want to answer. Otherwise, I'm just going to jump in and start answering
Yeah,
all.
feel free, Marco. I know we usually bounce back and forth. So
Yeah. Okay. So Eric, kind of a two-part question. When you invest, do you participate in one specific investment, or does it work more like a fund? And I assume he means a mutual fund. Where you participate in all three categories. Best, Eric. Yes, it's I'm not a fan of mutual funds, but yes, it's very much like a mutual fund. So Norada Capital, think of it as the parent company, the holding company, the fund, label it however you want. It owns equity in all of the business ventures in those three categories. So you are not investing in one of those business ventures or one of those business assets. You're actually investing in Norada Capital, which has a portfolio of businesses. So that portfolio is the foundation that the company sits on, and your note is basically sitting on top of that. It's riding on top of that. So the short answer is no, it's not one specific investment. The long answer is, as to quote other investors, Their investment is quote unquote diversified across all the businesses that we are equity holders in. So you're benefiting from everything, the whole thing. And, that's to your benefit.
Correct.
Eric's part B question is, can you roll the interest directly back into the original investment? It's funny. It's interesting how many people actually ask that.
Right.
Unfortunately, you can't directly through how we're set up. We're just not set up for you to reinvest the interest and compound it. Although that's, that would be wonderful. It's a brilliant idea. But what you can do is, I believe it's every $25,000 in it as a minimum.
Yes.
$25,000 you can add to your existing note to increase the principal amount and increase the interest that you're getting paid, like what you're earning. Or you can set up a separate note, or we can reissue a brand new note if you're coming in with another 25,000 or another 50,000 or whatever that number is. The minimum is 25,000. You can add to it anytime. But the interest itself, you're just going to have to bank it and then reinvest it. We just can't just roll it every month back into your note and increase your note principal by doing that. So
Yeah.
So you can't do that.
Good questions there, guys.
Did you have something to add to that?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. We're at 25K is the minimum. So let's just use an example. We have several investors that are at the 200K tier that have invested 200,000, right? That's $30,000 a year in interest back to you. So if you wanted to take that interest that you earned for that year and you wanted to put it back into your existing note, as long as we're still raising capital and taking on new capital, you can add that $30,000 of interest because it surpasses or it meets or surpasses the 25K minimum. We can put that back into your note. We just don't do it on a monthly basis. We have that minimum tier of 25K.
Yep.
As far as the next question here, I know that the anonymous attendee, whoever you are, you're the masked anonymous person out there. Do we pay out monthly distributions? It's monthly distributions to pay out our investors. I'm not sure specifically, Marco, you can speak more to the business question there, right? I'm not sure if he's asking just about businesses or just about paying out investors itself.
Well, yeah. So to his question about by all reports, Mastermind business is doing exceptionally well and profitable. Why the promissory notes, which cost you 50? Yeah. So the reason we started offering a note offering about 4 years ago could have been a little bit longer than that, a little further out at 12% or 15%, not a variable rate. It's a fixed rate. It's either 12 or 15, depending on the amount you invest in. Actually, Nate, that just reminds me, we should probably,
we haven't even covered that yet. So
yeah, we haven't even talked about the investment, but we'll do that after this question. So I might be giving you more of an answer than you're asking, but the reason we did that, and actually to this day still continue to do that, although we don't have to do that, we can lower that rate to 8%, 9%, 10%, whatever it is. We just find that the 12% and 15% is very attractive and brings in the right accredited investors that we want to work with. We don't work with everybody. You need to make sure we're a right fit for you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we also want to make sure you're a right fit for us. You need to be accredited. We want to make sure that you have, a decent level of understanding and you're aware of the potential risks. Everything has a risk. So I'm never going to tell you that any investment ever has no risk. You have to understand what you're getting involved in. Having said that, we've got a great track record, and the trajectory we're on with all of our business ventures is very, very, very good and exciting. But the reason we offer 12 and 15% is we want to raise capital, raise it relatively quickly, because we're growing and scaling all of our businesses right now. In the beginning, it was more like acquisition than growth. Now we've put all the stakes in the ground. And so with all the business ventures that we have, which you'll see in the investor deck, which by the way is going to be modified in the very near future, like within the next week or so, there's going to be some additions and modifications. But you can see the business ventures that we're in, and we can also throw up a quick slide just to show you, but I've already talked about that.
You want me to pull it out, Marco, real quick?
Well, before you do that, let me finish answering the question.
Sure.
So the reason we're raising capital this way is because we can raise a fair amount of capital that we need within the time frame that we need it for to build, grow, and scale these businesses. So right now we're in this very very, very strong growth mode in scaling these businesses. Is there revenue? Yes. Is there profit? Not in all the businesses, but in a lot of them, they are profitable. Like our ecom businesses are all debt free. So anything we make trickles down to the bottom line is profitable. But we're not taking distributions, at least not yet. Like we will be taking distributions this year, starting in the middle of the year, particularly from our mastermind businesses, and that will start to escalate and grow. But when you're growing businesses of this size and scale and doing what we're doing, we have to reinvest in those businesses as prudent and um, smart business owners. So Eddie, Andrew, myself, we're having to carefully every month make the decision of what to reinvest in and what to keep, in the company coffers and whatnot. So right now, our goal is to get to certain numbers in terms of membership with Money Is, and certain goal in terms of membership with Level Up Real Estate, that second mastermind. That's all being driven through Aspire. The Aspire Tour is a very, very expensive event. It runs us over $1 million a month just to put that event on, sometimes 1.5 million. That's the venue, that's the talent, and everything else. Now, granted, we sell tickets, which helps lower that cost. But at the same time, we're constantly reinvesting in that to continue growing and driving business. We're on track with our business's pro formas. We're going to actually exceed what we've been looking to do with Money Is and Level Up. Level Up will actually probably be more profitable than Money Is, just because there's more people interested in real estate than there are in just general business or general investing and finance information. But they can join both, of course. And then Aspire, although it was started off as a loss leader, basically meaning that we were losing money with each event, but making it up on the back end when they joined Money Is, we're changing that business model this year to actually be a larger platform for other content providers, like John Gordon, for example. He's one of our first people that are coming in with their own stages, their own platforms. We already have the machine and the infrastructure, but now we split in the profit 50-50 with that John Gordon's making. So now Aspire is going to be a profitable center. But we couldn't do that if we were taking profit from these businesses and putting it into Norada Capital. We will, but by reinvesting, we're able to grow those businesses and make them bigger and more profitable. And that's exactly what we're doing. So part two answer to your question is, we're not going to continue to raise capital, as Nate and I have talked about many, many times.
Yeah.
We're going to scale this off. In fact, I'm actually on the tail end of finishing it's detailed, but I'm going to summarize what's essentially a cash flow pro forma. And you will see on that within 2 to 2.5 years, we're going to almost be fully scaled back from capital raising. So the next 3 years is going to be a period of time where we're going to continue to raise capital, but then the notes are just going to be paid off fairly rapidly after that. And we're not going to be raising any more capital unless we, have a one-off project that we want to raise capital for. But now we're going to have this new problem where the profitability is pretty high with the business ventures that we're in, that where you have to figure out where to invest or reinvest the profits. So right now, the goal is to not take money out of the companies, reinvest that to grow them so they become very, very sustainable, healthy, strong businesses that become very profitable. Get rid of all the notes. We'll pay them off, not all at one time, but as they mature, we'll just not renew them and just pay them off and stop raising new capital. Now that's all happening over like a 3.5 year time frame right now. But in 5 years from now, I mean, the liquidity and exit events that we're going to have are going to create 9 figures. So it's pretty substantial. Anyway, that's a long answer to your question, whoever anonymous is.
Yeah, it's a good question. Good answer for sure, Marco. Yeah.
A bit long-winded, but you know what? If I was to add anything more to that question or to that answer, it's this: you can't go to a bank or a lending institution. There are no banks or lending institutions that lend to early stage businesses or even new businesses. It's just they'll lend you the money when you don't need it, and when you need it, they're not there for you because you just you're a new business venture, or you're still early stage. You're within your first 2 or even 3 years of building or growing a business.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's, if you look at the backstory or the backbone of how a lot of businesses are built, it's built through private raise, right? You build businesses through private raise. It's very, very,
Most
very
business
normal.
ven yeah,
Yeah.
and Nate, most business ventures are done that way,
Yeah.
like
Absolutely.
how many businesses can you think of that actually went to a bank to get a bank loan or startup loan? It's usually done
Right.
by friends and family,
Yep.
private money, or if you're on a larger scale, it'll be VC capital, or or private equity firms investing in other private firms.
Yeah.
So
Correct. Correct. And as far as the actual interest rate, I mean, 12% is not uncommon in this space, right? It's, I think for a lot of people, it seems uncommon because they're used to stocks, bonds, T-bills, mutual funds, index funds, things like that. But you have to remember when the market's way up, your index funds are way above double-digit returns as well, or they're in the double-digit returns. So the private space is just a different world, when it comes to offering, to accredited investors. So Tom, we'll go to your question here. If I add to my investment, does the period remain the same, or does it not reset? It really depends. I mean, typically most investors just reset their note. We could on paper pay off that initial note and reset the timeline of the two or three, excuse me, the 3 year timeline if you do like a 3 year note, or we can create an addendum which says, hey, well, you're adding this much to your note, and we're paying you this much interest moving forward. So good question there. Zoom user, another anonymous person. Have you ever paused or stopped monthly interest payments or any loss of capital? Great question. I know Marco can speak to this. He's been doing note offerings since 2012, Marco. Really nice track record of never defaulting, and never missing a payment. I mean, sometimes, if the payout happens to come on like a Saturday, you might not get it till like Monday or Tuesday of the next week. But I don't believe we've ever had a loss at this point. Correct, Marco?
no, there's never been a loss. All the notes have been paid off. There's been hundreds, literally hundreds of notes that have been, paid off, what we call satisfied, but paid
Yep.
off full. The interest payments are set up on direct pay. It's an automated service. Right now it's with Wells Fargo. We're moving it to Chase. But no, there's never been a default, missed payment, or anything like that. Now, I don't know where that saying "knock on wood" came from. Short of some sort of catastrophe coming along, or something that is above and beyond our control, I don't see that changing. But no, we have no intention of stopping monthly interest payments. There's no reason for it. But no, it's never happened. And I've been involved with promissory notes since 2012. Back then, it was project specific. It was
Yeah.
2015 that we started raising capital like on a daily basis, on an ongoing basis, and it was just a revolving line of credit in a fund for real estate, for buying, fixing, and flipping real estate for 3 years. And then I transitioned out of that and started investing in the e-commerce space, and that's what led to Norada Capitals, because I, just like a real estate syndicator, I realized there's only so much capital that I have to invest, and now I want to grow and scale what I'm doing on the investment side. And so I just started Norada Capital to essentially allow you to invest and earn 12 or 15%, and allow me to arbitrage that capital to build these businesses that started off small, then became, like the Pier 1 dress barn, linens and things and all that stuff. And then that Eddie and Andrew approached me, and then we started building these mastermind businesses. And then while I was doing that, I was around the right people at the right place at the right time to get my foot in the door on Broadway. And because I already had a love and an interest for it, that grew pretty quickly. And so, like I said before, today there's about, I think, 12 productions. So
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Great question. And again, great answer, Marco, to give the backstory and the background there. Um, well, we've actually miraculously, we're kind of on time today. Usually we're a little bit over. We're at 11:50 here.
So let's just maybe pull up the slide and talk about the investment itself, because we didn't do
Yeah,
it before.
that's what we'll
We
do. I'm
forgot.
just looking at my other screen here, guys. So bear with
Yeah.
me. I'm going to pull it up here on this side, and we'll walk through the investment, and then I'll also show you how to get started here. So I should have screen share here. All right. So we'll share this. All right. So you can see that, Marco?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So the initial investment, guys, again, this is in the investor slide deck that you'll see. As long as you're accredited, right? You choose your term, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. That the minimum term is 3 years. We pay out a 12 or 15% annual interest, fixed rate of return. This is not variable. We're not going to change this on you. Minimum investment's $50,000. $50 to $100,000 gets you 12% annually. Anything over $100,000 here gets you 15% annually. There is a 5% bonus payout to anybody that does 200K or more. So 5% on the principal amount, right? So easy math, $200,000 investment, that's 15% per year. 5% of 200 is a $10,000 bonus payment, right? So that would be paid out to you at the end of your maturity. So at the end of the 3 years, okay? Again, their monthly interest payments is direct deposit to your self-directed IRA, your solo K, your business, your personal account, whatever you choose, your trust. We usually pay out, we say the first day, it's usually the second day or the first week actually of each month. It really just, it's typically the second day or the first week. So we need to adjust that. But again, the minimum investment is 50K to get started. That's the actual note. Or excuse me, the actual terms and the interest amounts. We can certainly send you like a sample contract and things like that to review it. Anything to add to that, Marco?
No, you can just get started anytime.
Yep. I'm going to go into the profile form here as well.
Yeah.
So this one's actually amortized. Let's go to the regular one here. So this is the investor profile form, guys. Everything's automated. Okay. So you've got first name, note holder name, tax ID. It's very self-explanatory. If you want to get started, you fill this form out. It takes you 5 minutes. This kicks you a contract within about 10 minutes from our DocuSign system. You don't ever have to sign anything right away. We always, whether you're working with me or you're working with Michael or John, we'll get an update to know that you filled this out. We confirm the terms of you, the dates, the amounts, you know, the titling's correct, things like that. And then it's as simple as you sign it, Marco sign it, and then it's as simple as a wire transfer over to us to get that process started. So everything's automated. It's very simple. The big thing I always reiterate is when you're filling the note holder section out, make sure to put in your custodian or your LLC or your personal information. We have to make sure to cut you the correct tax information. So this is the process. If you have any other questions, guys, you can go to our website, noradacapital.com. You can fill out a profile here to get a guide or raise your hand to have a consultation with us. There's also a chat widget over here you can use to connect with us. So everything's there for you. If you have any questions, email us, reach out to me, reach out to one of our team members here, and we can certainly get the process started with you. So it doesn't look like anybody else has any questions here. Anything to add to that, Marco?
No, if you have any questions, like you said, just reach out to us, any one of us, our team. We're here to help. And if you haven't, gotten the investor deck, just, download that. There's a link there, but you can also get it from the website as well.
Correct. And a reminder, this is recorded, so you'll be getting a copy of this in your inbox the next probably 48 hours or so. So, all right, perfect, guys.
Well, we're 8 minutes early.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, all right, guys, again, reach out if you have any questions. Marco, I appreciate your time as always, and we'll chat with you soon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Nate.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.